Hey guys, Khalid from Fanatics magazine, and we're back with a podcast show. We had a week's break. It was a difficult, torturous break. I couldn't wait to start this again. It felt like it's been months though, Dan, since I saw your face now on the screen. What did you get up to this last week?
Not much, man. It's good to be back and talk about some cricket again. Like you said, it feels like it's been forever, man. Really, I missed you a little bit, to be completely honest.
Yo, wow, that's the first for you. This is the first time. We got the first time for 3T cricket, the first time for certain people with awards, etc. So it's the first time for everything. Obviously the show we're going to be talking about CSA awards. Probably starting off with that, and then we're going to move into the high performance teams, etc. So Dan, you watched the awards. Obviously the amateur awards. It was a bit of a disappointment that the stream didn't work, etc., and that it was a bit wonky. But we saw some.
Yeah.
We saw a great presenter over there, and it's someone that we're going to be gladly welcoming onto as part of one of the contributors. We didn't tell Mpho yet that we spoke to her, and she was keen to come on board. So hopefully we'll be able to do more with her in the future. If she does agree again, I have to obviously speak to her. But after our first conversation, we had a good conversation. But what stood out to me about the amateur awards is someone like Jonathan Bird getting an award for the first time, and we had a guy like Ongama obviously covered us too. So we all both did features on the game, etc. What was your thoughts on the amateur awards? Anything about John O'Bird that stood out to you necessarily over this? Have you seen much of him?
Yeah, I've watched a bit of him. The awards didn't surprise me much. I don't think there were any shocks. If you strictly look at the performances over the last season, it is good to see. Young. You can call them kids. Look, I'm old enough to call them kids now. To see them getting these awards, what you sort of hope to look for is that they move on from semi-pro cricket, come straight into franchise cricket, and start getting awards there. There's no reason we couldn't see John O'Bird getting a 4-day player of the year next season. There's no reason. He'll probably be a main player at the Cobras next season, and same for more of the other guys. We don't necessarily just need to speak about John O'Bird here, but you want to see these guys. It's all well and dandy that they get recognition at an amateur level, and that's great. But you do want to see them develop. You want to see them in franchise cricket, and you want to see them putting those performances at a franchise level.
Yeah. And because, I was quite shocked a little bit about, okay, not shocked really. I wouldn't say shocked because there was a lot of talent at the Kai Majora week, etc. We obviously know Blue Belford won that award. But there was another guy that really stood out to me was Bryce Parsons. And I was quite surprised that they didn't go with someone like him for this award. He was kind of one of the shoe-ins for me because he was one of the top performers throughout the year. Even in the test match that they played so poorly in the SA 19, he really stood out in that game. So, but I guess that award you could give to anybody. But let's go into
there's obviously he's been around for a couple seasons. He's been around for a couple seasons. So it's difficult to really tell who performed because you have to look at a very specific time frame. Like I initially thought, how was Rassie van der Dussen excluded from these awards? And then you actually need to go look at when he scored his runs and when he didn't score his runs, and then you suddenly realize, why players weren't sort of included and whatnot. And I think Bryce Parsons kind of falls into there. Like, obviously he's a magnificent player. He's playing for Gauteng at the moment. It's fine if he didn't get an award, he'll be in the running for the next one.
Yeah. So obviously we had the main awards. I guess there weren't so many surprises over there either. One that stood out to me was the 4-day series player of the year. There was, I think it was very close over there in that department because we had the top spin in the tournament, top batsman in the tournament, and then top all rounder in the tournament. So it was kind of like between the three of them, and they went with George Linder. We did a piece about George. You guys can go check it on the website on cricketfanaticsmag.com. it's interesting what he said over there about how long he took to be recognized as a red ball player. He took some time, long time on the bench, etc., and just awaiting there. But in this domestic awards and obviously the professional international awards, was there anybody that you thought might have felt hard done by for this particular section?
Yeah, I think the only one that I was probably a little bit surprised by was actually initially the George Linde one. I thought Reinhard van Tonder had that one pretty much settled. I think he averaged 70 last season. He was magnificent. But then I actually went and I looked at the numbers again, and George Linde was incredible. I think he was a second leading wicket taker, just behind Prenel and Subrian. He was up there. I think his bowling average was something ridiculous. Yeah, and then he averaged nearly 50 with a bat. Obviously, there were a couple of not outs. He bats low down in the order, so there were a few not outs here and there. But what I thought might lean it in Van Tonder's favor is how poor the Cobras were. The Cobras themselves had a really terrible season, so I thought that might count against them. We've seen it happen in football. Often Ballon d'Or goes to whoever won, the Champions League or something like that.
About the Knights, you mean, for Van Tonder?
I'm saying George Linde for the Cobras. I think I thought that would count against him. The fact that the Cobras didn't do well. Sorry. So I thought, okay, Van Tonder will do that. The Knights didn't win, but they had a good season. And he was way above the rest. No one came close to him. There were a lot of good performers, but in terms of batting, he was way ahead of everyone else. But on an all-round contribution to the team, I think George Linde actually takes. He contributed with the ball, contributed with the bat, and you could argue he was playing for the weaker side. I don't think the Cobras won a red ball game. I don't think they won any games the entire season. So for him to be the second leading wicket taker and to average nearly 50, and he's playing for the bottom ranked side, then good on him. So I'm glad he got it actually.
Yeah, Grant Rudolphson also coming in there hot with the one-day player of the season. I was also I was surprised, but it was very close between him and Zubair Hamza for me, because Hamza scored exceptional amount of centuries in a row, etc., and he was also once again. But I think because the Dolphins were champions, maybe in this case, they were. That's the reason maybe why that Grant played a winning role for his side.
Absolutely, and you also have to take into account that he keeps wicket. So like him and Hamza were probably same with the bat, but then Rudolphson had the added sort of pressure of keeping as well. So that probably tilted it in his favor. But he was brilliant, man, and it was his first Momentum One Day Cup season. His first one where he got a proper run. So I mean, Hamza's not old, but he's been around for a few seasons. So for Rudolphson, I was pretty happy with that.
Yeah. One thing I was surprised in the women's department is that Laura didn't wipe it clean. T20, because in the World Cup she was phenomenal.
Yeah,
covered drives, etc. But I mean, also Shubnam was brilliant, and she was a brilliant bowler in the tournament as well. But I thought that Laura would just win everything. I mean, she was hectically one of the best players, or the best player, women's player in the international scene at the moment. One of the best players in the world at the moment. Same with Quinton, but then I thought about Lungi and Lungi's return, what Lungi did to come back from injury, and the effort he put in, and the important performances he put in at the death. I mean, he won us 2 games single-handedly, one against Australia and I think one against England as well. So
absolutely,
he's been phenomenal, the way he's put in the effort that he's put in. So I think that was pretty straightforward. I don't know how they go about for the fans player of the year, where they get the votes from, because I never actually voted, or I don't think any of us voted, or how we go about voting. But David Miller, I voted.
I didn't vote for David Miller though. Sorry.
How do you go about voting for that particular one?
I think it was on the website. I think you could go vote on CSA's website.
I didn't actually know that.
I voted for Quinny, I think.
Yeah. So it's interesting. There's a lot of great awards, but I think
go ahead.
No, you go.
I think there's intangibles that you kind of have to take into account sometimes. Like statistically, Laura probably could have won all of them, like you said.
Yeah.
Quinny maybe as well, but you almost don't want to give them all those awards. Like Ngidi does need to be recognized for winning us matches single-handedly. He did. There are some intangibles that you need to take into account, like him coming back from injury and doing that. That's something that you can't really quantify, which was good. And just slightly off topic, looks like he's lost about 20 kgs as well. The guy's he's looking lean, and he's looking ready to play, to bowl 30 overs in India. So I'm really happy with him. So I'll give him all the awards. He can walk away with 3 of them if he wants.
Yeah. So obviously the main thing about this whole thing for me was the press conference afterwards. And I was running around busy with a whole lot of different things, organizing work for the next day. So I told Ongama that he's going to have to take that one on his own. So we're actually going to bring Ongama on to give us some insight into things that Quinny said and some things that Laura said, but particularly what Quinny said. Quinny said some interesting things in that press conference about him as a player and where he wants to go forward. So I'm going to bring on Ongama so that he can just give us a quick summary of everything before we get into the high performance chat, guys. So Ongama, how's it going, bro? First of all,
good, bro. How's it?
How was the awards for you? Who stood out for you? What stood out from that press conference?
Yeah. I was very surprised that Mbulelo Putaza didn't win that one. I was hoping that us as bowlers will get something out of this season. I mean, like, Mbulelo performed very well for me, so I thought he was going to win that one, but then it didn't. In terms of the press conference, Quinny said some interesting stuff there, especially as a fan, knowing who Quinny is, his potential. He said that he enjoys betting at 5, and that's the position that he sees himself betting in the near future. He says he had an informal chat with Mark Boucher that he wants to stay in that position, and a bunch of other things that he said during that presser.
But the thing that stood out to me really is about batting up the order. We've been talking about him batting up the order for a while now. Specifically, that he wants to bat number 5. Dan, what do you think about that?
It's difficult. It's a part of me doesn't want him to move up because there's a hole there. If that is the reason, I'm not saying that is the reason, but if he sees like South Africa have been struggling at 3, 4, and 5, and I'm the best batsman in the side, let me go fill that hole, then that's not a reason to move. We all know that Quinny averages 50 at 7. There isn't a batsman in the history of Test cricket who averages more than Quinny batting at 7. That's a fact. It's more than Gilchrist, more than whoever. So he is technically the best number 7 in Test cricket. So statistically, it seems like why change something that why fix something that isn't broken? Why? Let's not reinvent the wheel here. But at the same time, you want players playing or batting where they feel comfortable. If he says he feels comfortable at 5 and that's where he wants to bat, that's something you do need to take into account. But now all of a sudden, that starts causing sort of some trouble in the middle order there. Suddenly, like, what happens to Rassie then? Does that mean Rassie shifts down, shifts up, or is he dropped? If Pavuma comes in, I thought Pavuma was kind of our 5. What happens to him? So I mean, there's a lot of ways to look at it. If he says he wants to bat at 5, then he's the senior player. He's our best player. Him and Bouch have a good relationship. They're at the Titans. Then I think it'll probably happen.
Yeah, I think
and another thing when it then another thing then that you must think about. Quinny is at that stage of his career where he's about to get on the same level as Virat Kohli. So I think the reason behind the move, just looking from the outside and trying to interpret it, is that Mark Boucher is trying to help him get up there on the batting rankings. So for him to get there, he has to get that extra bit of responsibility. And if you think about it, Quinny was not someone that you would rely on earlier on his Test career, because there were ABs, there were Faf, Hashim Mamla, but then now he's the senior guy, so he has to step up and bat in the top 5 or even in the top 4, because we all know Faf is not gonna play Test cricket for any longer. With Rassie, we know Rassie has done well at number 3, so I think he's gonna get an extended run in that position. So Queenie, just looking from the outside and also just trying to interpret where his career is going. Number 5 is the spot for him. That's my opinion.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
Same over there for me. I mean, because the main thing that came out of that article, go check it out on the website, guys. There is an article on cricketfanatics.com. I'm going to keep punting it until you guys get it in your head. So the main thing that I got out of that article was the fact that he spoke about wanting to rise up on the batting rankings and obviously improve his conversion rates and get bigger scores, etc. And that's the main reason for him wanting to move up the order. It's the same sentiments that we spoke about before when we spoke about whether Quinn should move up the order before. So yeah, I kind of agree with his sentiments. I think that's the right thing for him to do. Our best players need to bat higher up. But Ongama, sorry, man.
Yeah. No, it's fine. I do agree that he needs to sort of mature, and I don't want to use the word grow up, but we kind of have this idea that Quinny is this young guy on our side, which he was not too long ago. When we had Amla and Callis and AB and those guys, then Quinny was the young guy coming up, and he could, hit a few sixes and go out, and we'd be like, it's fine. Quinny's young. He's got all the talent in the world. He's young. He'll develop into the player we all think he's going to develop into. But now he's 27. Now's the time to, you can't be averaging less than 40. You're the best batsman in South Africa, and you're averaging less than 40 in Test cricket. So maybe it is time that he bumps up the order and he starts playing significant innings. Those not 40s and 50s and 60s, but big hundreds and double hundreds. Match winning hundreds and series winning hundreds and yeah. So I'm happy for him to move up the order. I mean, there is all these youngsters like the Keegan Petersons and the Carl Verenas and the that whole conversation.
Yep. Yeah, we go.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly it. Like someone could easily take the gloves, and Quinny bats at 5. We're not short of guys who could take the gloves. Verena could do it, Second could do it, Kashila could do it, Makwetu could do it. There's a lot of guys. I've probably left someone out there because Rulofsson could do it. Like there's a lot of guys who can keep wicket in South Africa. We're not short on those. What we are short of at the moment is number 5s who score runs. So maybe that is the answer.
Ongama, we spoke enough about Quinny, I think now. Talk to me a little bit about Laura. So now I remember watching Laura when she made her debut. I've seen her at Province. I've seen her in the nets. She's a phenomenal player. I mean, you can. Some people would even say she's better than some of the men in the men's side, from a technical perspective, from a cricketing perspective, just from a cricketing brain perspective. What stood out to you about Laura? I mean, it obviously would have been your first time that you would have been in a press conferences with her, because I mean, I remember at last season's Cricket South Africa Awards, and I think the first one as well I went to, Laura was there too, and she was very mature, and her maturity always stood out. As an 18-year-old coming to the team, she was very, very mature for her age, and that really stood out to me. But what stood out to you about Laura and what she said in that press conference?
Yeah, Laura spoke a lot about the fact that she used to bat way up the order. She used to open the batting. So it took her time to sort of adjust at that number 5 position where she was batting at during the World Cup. So that's the main thing that she spoke about in that press conference. Just appreciation to a coach that she now has a lot of depth in his arsenal. In other words, she can bat at number 3 in T20 cricket, or open the batting, or come down the order at number 5. Which is a good thing for the woman. Just to have someone who can slot in anywhere in the order. Yeah, that's basically it. That's basically it.
Okay, cool. So, Gamash, thank you for this. Thank you for coming on. Do you want to just maybe say some of the things that you're working on for the coming weeks?
Yeah, well, there's gonna be a lot of features with some of the award winners. And tomorrow we have another press conference with the T20 Cricketer of the Year, both women and men. So Lungi is gonna be there. So you guys look out for that. Keep checking our website for that. And there's a lot more content from all the CSA awards, from most of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome, guy. I'll speak to you again soon. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks guys for having me.
Cheers, man.
Cool. So, Dan, crux of it. Let's talk about the main thing that we wanted to speak about for this particular episode, and that is obviously the high performance squad or training squad. Now, there was a list of 45 players that were mentioned, and it is quite an in-depth squad. I've never seen such a huge squad in my life. So I'm looking at it and I was like, whoa, like how are they going to actually assess everybody and look at everybody and see everybody? I should actually give Vinny a call and ask him how they're going to go ahead and do these things and how they're going to test who's ready and who's not ready. Is it just about fitness, etc., etc., etc.? So we're gonna go right into it and bring Mpho on immediately because I think that he can give us instant communication. So how's it doing, bro? How are you doing?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Becoming quite a regular on the show.
Yeah, it seems like you guys want to call me every week now.
No, we really like your company and the perspective that you bring, and you get Dan to think out of the box a little bit more. So that's great. So Dan, start it all off us. Tell us a little bit about that squad. Give us some of the names that are in that side that maybe you were a little bit taken aback about, or maybe some of the obvious ones that you know.
So look, I think it's quite easy. I saw the initial reaction from fans was like, "Oh, 45 players, you've just included everyone, blah blah blah." You know, classic cricket fans or sports fans in general. But I think we can take something from it. So what we could potentially be seeing is the possibility of South Africa adopting the England model and picking like a test side, an ODI side, and a T20 side. You know, we could see South Africa sort of heading in that direction where we don't mix breeds and send oaks across different formats and things like that. Obviously, there'll be a couple of players who overlap, like the Quinny de Koks of the world. They'll play around, but maybe this is a sign that we're going to start separating, you know, our squads, which you may or may not agree with. It's nothing really caught me off guard. Maybe there was one or two names that I thought, ooh, you know, that was probably a selection based on potential rather than performance, or not necessarily that they hadn't performed, but maybe that they were better performers. An example is a guy like Tony de Zorzi, who's flipping. He's a talented player. You know, you can watch him bat. You know, wow, that kid has got it. But then excluding a guy like Grant Rulofson, you know, who was the leading run scorer in the 50 over format by far. You know, he dominated the white ball format. So to see him excluded particularly when South Africa actually doesn't know who's opening the batting for them in ODI and T20 cricket. You know, we've shuffled Reza Hendricks, we've shuffled Aiden Markram, we've shuffled, I think Bavuma's open. You know, we've Yanaman Malan's open. We've tried all these guys, so I thought maybe we'd see Grant Rulofson in there, but no. So hopefully next season. It might take more than one season for him to be included. But they apparently are happy to include guys on one season. We saw Reynard van Tonder, who's only had one good season, get included. We saw Marcus Ackerman. You know, he had a good season and he got included. Gerald Coetzee, you know, he didn't even get a full season. So I mean, that's another example of picking a guy purely on potential. But yeah, that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, Mpho, what was your thoughts on that?
When I saw the 45, I kind of felt as though they're looking towards a West Indies type of model because they were looking to try and play against the West Indies sometime if the West Indies were either going to stay in England, so we'd fly there, or we're going to play in the Caribbean because the cases of COVID are a little bit low. And the West Indies took a 30-man squad to England because of the threat of the virus. So my thought was, okay, we're looking towards getting players on a plane to wherever it is in the world, 2 weeks quarantine, and if injuries happen, these are the guys we're looking for. I was happy that they rewarded performance, especially last season. The person I didn't see was Marcus Ackerman, but I kind of saw at the bottom of their press release he was there. I think Grant Rulofsson is in there. But essentially, it was all the standout performers in the three formats of the domestic season that were in there. The only person who wasn't there, which irritated me, was Mbulela Budaza. And I had a question mark around a Junior Dala who didn't have the best of seasons last year in the other formats of the game, but in T20 was incredible. And it's kind of like we're looking to the T20 World Cup, so you've got guys for that, and you've also got guys for the longer format, the test game, should we get it going against the West Indies sometime on the back end of August and September, wherever it is in the world.
Yeah, I think it's also a case of Mark Boucher and we trusts because we saw a guy like Sean van Berg get an opportunity. I mean, when Subrayan was the top spinner in the country for the season, and previously he was also bowling pretty well as well. He can bat a bit as well. So it was. There was certain players that you think that maybe, okay, Junior Dallo, when you were talking about him as well, it's someone that he knows well from his Titans days, etc. So Boucher seems to be a type of player that backs the people that he knows. But that's why it surprised me so much that we didn't see a guy like Abel de Villiers in the 45.
But you also got to look at it in this way. If India's coming to South Africa in August, somehow, somewhere, if we get it right, you need players to have already had about 4 weeks of training. So these are the 45 around the franchises who he needs to pick. Schoenberg, I think, should have always been in the selector's eye. I was angry in Sri Lanka when Tabrez went home after the first test, and we went back to three seamers instead of bringing in Sean van Berg into the side. So I was happy with. There were obviously the names that weren't there. We all know we're going to discuss, but essentially I was comfortable with who they had there because they either played for the Proteas in a test format or in some sort of a game, or they were the guys who we all knew were the next guys on the picking order. I thought that they could have had a little bit more and thrown in a lot more under 19/20-year-old guys who were coming into the setup, and Ntini. Makwetu being newcomer of the season. He's a wicketkeeper. He averaged 57 for the Knights in that 4-day series. I do think that but Makwetu had a falling out with Mark Boucher last season anyway at the Titans, because he did move to the Knights at the beginning of last season. So those are the type of guys I was expecting to have at least some younger under 19 guys looking to put up their hands, but they do have the fresh faces like Mark Ackerman. They've got. I'm happy they got Bjorn Fortuin inside there because it seems like Graham keeps on forgetting him. George Linder deserves an ability to be able to play all three formats, and he's a good all-round option. You guys are talking about Quinny moving up to 5. If Quinny moves up to 5, you can bring George in at 7. And you still have Quinny keeping the gloves, giving you that second all-round option. But at number 7, you have a guy who can bowl and bat, kind of like a Jadeja type of a player that does the role for India, especially when you're traveling around the world or in South Africa and you don't want to have another a Keshav in the side who just can bowl. But he's also worked on his batting too. So I think it's all the options that they need. The question is, what are they practicing for? Because it's still small practices and based on the ICC protocols up until they are allowed to go to groups of 6 and a little bit further. And maybe they might open it wider for the franchises, because I thought they missed a trick here in not allowing the franchises to pick probably 6 of their best players outside of the Protea guys to form part of these guys who do the training. But I think that maybe the coaches are limited in a sense, and then that's where I think Graham may have missed the trick. Instead of making it a 45, because we know who the Protea guys are, but allow franchises to bring their best players back. The Makanyas, all those other guys who have moved franchises who need to get some batting time before the season starts. I think that's where they missed the trick.
You know what my concern over here is that it's such a massive squad, and the people that have been left out that are kind of on the fringes, it might dent their confidence miserably. I'm a bit shaken and scared about that one, because they did trust a lot of people that are a lot older, like you know who. I'm not going to mention all the names, but they have trusted a lot of senior players instead of going for maybe younger guys. I mean, I didn't see Temba Koshila on the list.
No, he's not.
Yeah, so
but he had a bad season last year. He averaged 27 with the bat. He's good with that with the gloves. He's incredible, and the guy's got potential. But yeah, no. And I agree with you. But that's where I think the conversation needed to be had. I think maybe a wider conversation with all the 6 franchise coaches as to say, okay, fine, each franchise is allowed 10 players. Of those 10 players, here's a list of 5 guys we want to be in the setup, and then you can pick another 5. Just so they could, help guys also feel as though, as you're saying, to be part of the system, that the net is wider than the 45. We know that. Yeah. It's. I think they're just looking at India, the World Cup, and possibly the West Indies T20 and Test Series, which is the 45 guys who are going to be who possibly could come in should a COVID case happen overseas or an injury happen. And so that's I think where Graham's head is at right now.
Yeah, I think another thing we need to take into account is, so I mean, it's obvious that he's picked some older players like Junior Dala in his 30s, Sarel Avia 30s, Piet van Biljon 34, Sean van Berg 33. Maybe it's a statement like, guys, don't go to England. We're here to recognize you until you're 33, 34. You're always in contention. Maybe that's like a statement put out there, like, guys, don't quit. You could always make it. You have Piet van Biljon, he's literally 34, and he only recently made his debut. He made his debut in the T20 series. So maybe that's the reason behind that. I'm not saying it is. That's just another opinion. And he's essentially rewarding lots of years of performances as opposed to maybe 1 year. If he had picked it solely on 1 year, you would see Rulofsson and maybe not Adavia. Rulofsson outscored Sarel quite considerably, or not by that much, but he did. But Adavia, I think, is the leading run scorer in 50-over cricket over the last 5 seasons. You have to reward that before you reward the 22-year-old with 1 good season. So there's lots of ways to look at it. Like, do you want an aging squad? An aging squad mentally doesn't seem that great. Why are your fringe players 30, 32, 33, 34? But perhaps that is the reason. Maybe he doesn't want these guys signing Colpack contracts.
But I think you also got to look at the experience what the side has been through. South Africa's gone through a very tough period over the past 2 years, and maybe those aging players in the domestic setup come and become a Chris Rogers. You're 33, you're 34 years old, you're only going to play for a couple of years. A Joe Denny type of player, just for stability, to get the team on the right track while we're blooding in the youngsters. Because essentially, if you look at that England side, Joe Denny is literally waiting. Is probably a poor series away from getting Zach Crawley into his position, and that's the type of, I think that's the thinking that Graham wants. He's looking for seasoned domestic players to give them an opportunity, and to some extent I do agree with Dan. My issue is that essentially, what's a Sarel Avia going to do? What are the chances of a Sarel Avia making it into a Proteas top 5, essentially? Outside of a COVID. In COVID, it's possible because, as we saw with the West Indies, they've taken pretty much a whole 3 squads to England. So if you had to pick 3 squads of South Africa's test team that's going to play, Sarel Avia will make it in, and he just has to hope for medical situations to happen for him to get into the side. But on any other day, if you're looking beyond this pandemic and looking for the next 10 years, Salah Avi is only going to feature the first 2 years, whereas Zozi is going to feature for the entire decade. A Marcus Ackerman in a decade. Grant Wilson possibly even an entire decade. A Luke Beaufort, who was the SA Schools Player of the Year. A Jonathan Bird. Those guys were looking, and so that's where I felt as though Graham possibly towards his tenure as a director of cricket that ends in 2022, rather than necessarily let's try and set up this team for the next decade to dominate for the next decade, which I think he missed.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. I mean, I think it's difficult for him to be looking 10 years down the line when he hasn't won a test series. We haven't won a test series for 2 years. I think he's so focused on the now, given how bad things are in South African cricket. We just can't win cricket matches. I think it's very difficult to think like, what's my side going to look like in 10 years? I think he's just so desperate for a win right now. He's just so desperate to finally get the ball rolling. But at the end of the day, whose decision is it? Did Graham pick the squad? Was it the 6 franchise coaches? Was it a selector? Was it Boucher? Who is making these decisions? It does give me the Boucher and Smith kind of feel about it. Like, I do think they were the makers. Yeah.
We haven't appointed a committee of selectors yet. So essentially it would be Craig Govender, because obviously the players' fitness throughout COVID is important. That's probably one of the reasons why Dale Steyn isn't in this 45. Something's gone wrong. I think he probably got injured throughout the lockdown. But it's also a Boucher and Smith kind of axis, which is fine and it's okay, and that should happen because that's what you want between your director of cricket and your national team coach. The question is the plans behind the 45. Because as a player, if I'm a player in the 45, I'm happy to be in the 45 because I get to play. I get to train. I get to go to the nets and play while others are sitting at home, which is why I feel it's unfair for the other players in the other franchises because they won't be able to get that similar opportunity. Even if they don't get to play for the Proteas anyway, those guys in the 45 would be on full or some sort of a better form than the guys sitting at home. But it's just a question of what's the immediate challenges. If we're playing India, we need a T20 side against India. Then the AB de Villiers question comes in: why isn't he in this situation? And also, if they're in the WhatsApp group, what's going on? If you look into the World Cup, this 45 seemingly works because it's part of the guys who we picked to go to the World Cup and the nexus of the T20 side. If it's the West Indies and possibly a tour around the world, and you might have to split the teams, then this 45 works perfectly because you could have a very young-looking T20 side waiting in South Africa, probably for a team that's going to pass through here or wherever we are going in the world. And you can have a test side playing in the Test Championship, probably in England. And I think that's what he needs. It's about options. And I think Graham's given himself enough options with this 45 to pick whoever it is and get them in some sort of a mentality. It's similar to the rugby thing. When Rassie started, all the rugby coaches throughout my lifetime have always had a group of 60 guys or whatever it is, call them to an alignment camp so they all know what it is to play for the Springboks. We have never had that for the Proteas. This is probably the first time we're probably going to get it.
Yeah. Because if it's the T20 that they're going to focus on, and if it's the T20 that was the main decisions in certain people that they picked, like you're talking about, like Sarel Irvi, etc., and some of those type of guys, Bjorn Fortuin, I don't know if they are trusting him because he is a good four-day cricketer as well, and I don't think a lot of people might not know that, but he is with bat and ball. And if it was that, there's certain players that I think should have gotten an opportunity, like Vian Libbe, who had a phenomenal MSL campaign, a guy like Marco More, who had phenomenal campaigns as well. Guys, in the comment section, get some of your questions in the comment section so we can answer them too. But guys, that is my concern, is that there are certain players that have really worked hard and put in the hard yards and have performed that haven't gotten picked. And it's a tricky situation when you have to pick teams, and especially with a 45, it's such a big squad. I mean, it's understandable if it was a smaller squad. If it was a squad of 30, it's understandable if you were left out more than with a 45. I'm just happy that he did Because if it's T20, because you went with the youngsters that are 4-day cricketers more than T20 cricketers, like Reynard van Tonder. So what is their aim with the squad is what I want to know, and that's what I'm struggling to understand is what the vision is with regards to this. Is it to prepare for all formats and to make 3 different teams, like you explained, 3 different squads for basically for different formats, or is it what is the main focus of it? Is what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, I think the main focus is definitely an all formats squad. Like you can tell with Imran Tahir, Imran Tahir only actually plays T20 cricket, and he's been included. So you know they are trying to cover their bases across all 3 formats, right? I would feel disheartened being left out of a 45-man squad, regardless of it being a 3 format. Like that would, if I was a Vian Lubbe or a Marco Murray, like it would, it is difficult to hear. But things change so quickly in cricket, eh? Like if you had told me 2 years ago that Peter Malan would open the batting against James Anderson and Stuart Broad at Newlands, I would, the guy was playing for Western Province. Aidan Markram 2 years ago, we thought he'd have 5,000 test runs by now. We thought he was going to be the captain. 4 years ago, I would have told you Tennis the Brain was going to be our number 4 for the next 6, 7, 8 years. It's things change so quickly, and runs can't get ignored. Maybe you can be ignored for a season, maybe you can be ignored for 2 seasons, but the system has shown that if you do perform regularly, you get rewarded. Van Biljon eventually got selected. Advia eventually got selected. Von Bergnow has eventually been selected. So, yes, Marco Murray, great player. Vian Lubbe, great player. They had great MSLs. They helped their sides. It's tough to be left out. It doesn't imply that they aren't next in line. They could easily dominate the next MSL. They could easily dominate the next Momentum One Day Cup or the 4-day series, and straight away they're in. We've seen someone like Senatimbe Kishile going from his awesome first season and being, the hot topic on the local scene to having a not so good season. Now he's sort of fallen out of favor. He's behind. We have Quinny, we have Rudy Second, we have Carl Verena, we have who's the other, Heinrich Klaassen. All of a sudden he's fallen out of favor. It just shows you how one season can change things. So
that's a funny one, Heinrich Klaassen, actually, because a lot of people are looking at him as a wicketkeeper batsman, which he is. But in my on lockdown episode with him, he hinted to the fact that he wouldn't mind dropping the gloves. He's only doing it because if they really need it. I mean, he's focusing on his batting. Let me get into the quotes of to the comments of the year, and there is one that we can talk about. An aging squad isn't the best option for us. What happens when all of them retire because they're all around the same age, over 30? None of them will have international experience. Back to square one. What do you guys think about that?
I agree with that. Kind of need to, and this is where the director of cricket earns his money. You need to stagger the ages of your squad, so that when retirements happen, you don't get a massive pool of retirements coming through at all at once. Kind of like when Australia in between 2007 and 2009, everybody walked off. And that kind of derailed their project there. And with us over the past decade, we were lucky because it kind of seemed like our retirements were staggered up until Smith decided to follow Callis very quickly. And so you need to be able to be cognizant of that as a director of cricket. Also, you also need to understand that players are fitter now today, and guys can play until 36, 37 if they're good enough, or if they're world class, just like somebody else who isn't in the squad. But you got to factor those in. You got to allow younger players in, which I think he's done. I think Graham has put in quite a lot of players who are 24 and under in that squad. It's just now being able to figure out what their purpose is. I don't want to be picked. If the reason for me to be in this 45-man squad is for you to get me to train and be fit as a body waiting to go and play somewhere, that's fine. If it's just some smokescreen and you just needed 45 guys because you're allowed to train and I'm just there and there's no prospects of me making it into the Proteas, then I'm not going to be happy. The only thing I'll be happy for is you allowing me to train outside of my house during this lockdown. So I think those are the things I do know. I do think Graham's trying to look at everything. I think he's a new broom sweeps clean. And so he's trying to give himself and Mark and whoever the new convener of selectors who they said they've appointed, we're just waiting to find out who it is, what players they have. And also some of the guys are part of that 3TC thing, so they also needed to train as well. So yeah.
So it would have been
it's not like. Sorry, go ahead.
As I said, it would have been my choice over there to have a 3TC between the 15, 15, 15 over there in that 45.
No, but that's an idea. And seriously, that's an idea CSA should consider. If India does not come in August, they should get these 4 teams to play a week-long tournament in a venue that has no, probably in Poch because it's in the Northwest, and they play a week-long where it's either T20 or one day, whatever it is, just like they did with the women's cricket league, where they picked the 44 players in the national setup and allowed them to play in a round robin tournament over a weekend. It was 20. That's something to keep people, to keep them fit and keep them competitive and give them some competitive games, and then we can all see who's better than who against quality, rather than what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, and we could get maybe SuperSport or someone to stream that. I would love to see that. That would be awesome. Dan, what did you want to say before I interrupted you?
I'll drive to Poch to go watch that. I'll literally get in my car. But I agree that the aging squad can be a problem. But I mean, if we actually look on paper, like we kind of know what our side's going to look like for the next 7 or 8 years. We know Markram's there, we know Hamza's there, we know Keegan Peterson's there. Our bowling unit is sorted. Rabada, Nokia, Ngidi, Maharaj, they're going to be there. They're young, they're going to be there. Spinners can play for a while. We know Markram's going to be there. We know Hamza's going to be there. We know Keegan Peterson's going to be there. Pavuma will be there. Like you said, players can play till they're 35. We know Quinny's going to be there. So we know who the next in line guys are using the squad. We know Gerald Coetzee is being bred to be the next fast bowler. We know Marcus Ackman's being bred to be the number 3 or number 4. We know Bjorn Fontaine is being brought in to be the next spinner. George Linder, the next all-rounder. So we kind of have a good sense of who it is that we'd like to take over from Olga, Faf, Rassi. Who am I missing? The 30-year-olds. But just knowing, exactly. Yeah. I mean, Eddie Moore was included there. We know who it's going to be. That's not the issue. The guys just need to score runs. The batsmen need to score runs, and the bowlers need to take wickets. That's what we're just waiting to see. Like, the talent's there. It's not like we don't have young cricketers who can play Test cricket. They're there. Eddie Moore can take over from Dean Elgar today. He can play Test cricket tomorrow. Eddie Moore can play Test cricket tomorrow. Keegan Peterson can play Test cricket tomorrow. That's not the issue. A part of me thinks that Smith also just wanted to cover his bases. There's a lot of negative sentiment around him. He didn't want to pick a squad of 15 and they have everyone blasting him. So he's like, fuck you guys. He has a squad of 45. Now try find a problem with me now. Like, I've included everyone and everyone and their mom and their cousin and their aunt is in the squad. Still come and we'll still fight. We'll still fight with him. We don't care. He could have picked a squad of 60. We would have been like, where's this kid who's at Weinberg? He's 16. He could be there. Like,
I have many of those as a Lions supporter. Part of those guys, Ryan Rickleton, I think he should have been here, and I think he should have been allowed to train at the Wanderers with Wandi Legwavu again because he's phenomenal. Nicky van den Berg, and who I think is probably one of the best wicketkeeper batsmen we have, and the Lions being at the top shows it. Yeah, and he's a great leadership
captain.
Yeah. Aaron Pangiso, but we all know why he's not there. Because I think as a T20 bowler, Pangi is up there with everyone else. Even in the 4 days, he has done very well for the Lions.
I agree. Pangi should be there.
Coming through, which is good. And that's probably. Yeah.
But again, yeah, we can't just mention all 60 players that play franchise cricket. Like, you know, we've got 45 here, and we're talking about the 20 guys that aren't there. You know, it's like before you know it, we've named all 6 franchise sides. You know, it's like they're all quality, they're all good players.
As well. Marco Jansen now moving over from the Knights. We need to see more of him actually playing at the Wadis. He's going to play a lot more, I think, and he's still very young. Lifantanzi is superb, but they need to manage him properly because he was already had a massive injury before, like recently, and I think they need to manage him properly as well. You see, someone like Gerald Kutsia almost had a full Mzansi Super League playing at the top level, bowling to guys like AB de Villiers, etc. So, okay, he got injured towards the end, but they need to manage him properly as well. Leaf is a phenomenal bowler. I watched him play at Gcwabe week, and people couldn't play him. He was unplayable. He was taking wickets. He was beating the bat. And I'm talking about top guys that were struggling to play against him. Some of the top batsmen. So in that tournament, so phenomenal player as well. So we will see these guys filter in. I think they wanted a little bit of surety, and they picked guys that they actually know. I don't think Boucher had the opportunity to be able to go and see everybody play. He could only see majority of the players that he knows.
Wait, hold up. What do you mean he hadn't had the opportunity to see everyone play? He was coach of the Titans for 2 seasons. How many seasons? Well, hold up. No.
But I'm talking about the youngsters. I'm talking about under 19 players.
He should know too. He's been coach of a franchise side. He's a coach of a franchise side. He should know. There's no excuse for Boucher not to know any under 19s coming through the system. It's unacceptable. I'm sorry. He was coach of the Titans. He should know. Sorry, that's my
true.
little soapbox.
Okay.
That's true, man. Let it out.
Let it out, bro.
I agree, man. I mean, that's a fair comment.
The person who can take it or who you can excuse is Graham. But Mark was coach of the Titans. He knows. Makwetu came through him. He let him go to the Knights because he had some disciplinary issues or whatever it was. He's had Diane Khalim, who was a former under-19 player. Seen a lot of these guys come through. He had Corbin Bosch for 2 years. For 4 years, he couldn't do much with him. Corbin's now managing to get himself into the side. He's seen all the other franchises, and if he doesn't know who the next guys coming in are, then that's his problem. You know, you got guys like Bryce Parsons with the Lions, got him to bat with Chris Gale at the start of the Mzansi Super League in the little warm-up match to give an opportunity. That's what Mark should have been doing with the under-19s. You can't be surprised when we're asking for guys like possibly Luke Beaufort to be put in. You can't be surprised if we're asking for guys like Gerald Kutsia to be in. Yes, you put him in, but you cannot. You can't be excused from that, especially a guy like Mark Boucher.
No, but what I'm trying to say is that he's picked guys from who he's seen as a coach. So what I'm saying is, when you look at the Mzansi Super League, he's picked him playing with the Spartans. He's obviously seen players play against him and with him. He's obviously with Graham Smith involved, and also with regards to the head of high performance, of course. And he must be talking to Shukri Conrad, and he must be talking to Vinnie Barnes to get this information of who the players are coming through. Someone like Matthew Brzezinski, another guy that is a top quality player that has played Mzansi Super League, and he's played also at for franchise for a couple of years. But I'm talking about the unseen guys that you wouldn't have seen play a lot, like a Lifa Ntanzi specifically, because Lifa wasn't seen by a lot of players. I remember clearly when he was selected for the SA Schools SA School side. He just made it in the Gcwabe because he was a 17-year-old boy. I mean, he's still very young. I don't think Boucher's standing around watching school cricket, so I don't think he really knows those type of players. But yes, you're 100% right that he should know people that have played at least one season for franchises and at least have made their debuts already and played a couple of games, semi-pro, etc. I'm not saying that he shouldn't know that he must, but he can't be everywhere as well. He needs scouts out there to be able to help him out and see other players and give him some advice on those players.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to make assumptions here. I don't want to say like Boucher didn't pick Lifa because he doesn't know who he is. You know, he may, we don't know. I'm not the biggest Boucher fan in the world, but at the same time, we have no idea. Is Lifa a good cricketer? Of course he is. Like, flipping wild, but he hasn't played a game of franchise cricket yet. You know, like
Yeah.
as good as he is, it seems a bit odd to pick a 19-year-old in a 45-man Proteas squad when he hasn't played one game of franchise cricket. You know, that's stretching it. You know, picking Gerald Coetzee is a stretch already.
That's what I'm talking about.
But Gerald Coetzee has.
Tim said here, for example, Boucher has allows him to every domestic game as coach, and I agree.
Yeah.
Domestic games, yes, but he doesn't. With regards to other, I'm talking about other matches. Seeing them play in a schools tournament or Western Province or Sax versus Rondebosch boys, where you're going to see them play. I mean, that's very. I highly doubt it that he's going to be there watching those games. To be honest,
Yeah, I mean, Mark Boucher's. Mark Boucher's he's the Proteas head coach. You know, it's difficult to ask him to spend his Saturdays watching Weinberg versus Sax. I'm sure there are people who that's their job. You know, their job is to bring them into semi-pro and into franchise cricket and so on and so forth. I don't want to make the argument about the leafers of the world. You know, you can easily justify his exclusion. He hasn't played franchise cricket. He hasn't played MSL. He hasn't played. It's the Pangisos and the Rickletons and those kind of players. You know, it's like how do you exclude them? If we've picked Von Berg, who's performed for 10 seasons, then how does he make it ahead of Pangiso, who's done the same for 10 seasons? You know, and arguably, well, in my opinion, is a better spinner. Rickleton's been excluded, but you've included DeZorzi. You know, how do you justify those? Those are the discussions that I think we should be having. So it's difficult. You pick a squad of 45 and you're still not happy. You know, can you imagine when he picks a squad of 15? Like it's gonna be anarchy.
Look, no one's ever gonna be happy about who's in the squad. It's just we'll just have to pretty much throw the can down the road and figure out what he needs the squad to do. And I'm assuming that if it wasn't COVID, we wouldn't have a 45-man squad. We'd probably have 30-man squad, probably the Proteas CSA type of system. But because you don't know Proteas might sign to go play in the world and take the 2-week quarantine, and so everyone fit and ready when the button gets pushed of, hey guys, we need to get on a plane. If guys can't make it on a plane because they already are tested positive, then you have a string of guys to pick from, and so that's where fundamentally I think Graham's head is at right now, because as South Africa, you're stuck here, you know, and essentially the model of us being like Pakistan and the West Indies and flying to the UK to play there after some sort of a quarantine, as you saw Pakistan played an internal game yesterday and today, is much more of a juicier prospect, because at least once you're that side of the world and you have a squad of about 25 to 30 players who are fit enough, you can then play England if you need to have a return series. You can play the West Indies because they're still there, and Pakistan's not leaving the UK anytime soon. So you can have a quadrangular, you can have whatever you want to have, and these 45 guys will help you in selecting squads should injuries happen, because the days of flying guys out of South Africa are gone. You literally have the guys there, and the cold packs can't help. So I think essentially that's where I think Graham's thinking and CSA's thinking is going.
Yeah. So we got a comment over here from Ayanda that I think we can speak about, and it's something that me and Daniel argued about and spoke about for quite some time. We have a whole podcast episode talking about this, whether the SIA squad should be a team that bloods in young players, or should it be our second best 11? We know already that the guy that Graham Smith has spoken out in press conferences saying that he wants it to be like when he was back in the day, where the second squad was the second best 11. So his comment over here is, my problem with the SA recently has been the fact that they play 30-plus-year-olds in the SA teams instead of letting young players experience foreign pitches for future selections.
See, the thing is right now, if I were to pick an SAA side, I think it would actually be majority youngsters, like your Ackermans and your Keegan Petersons and your Gerald Coetzees and those kind of guys. If you actually pick the best second 11, it has a lot of youngsters.
Yeah, naturally.
Yeah, and Grant Rudolphson and Eddie Moore, that second 11 is often a very young side. My problem comes in. So let's say the most recent test series, which was against England, we had Aiden Markram who broke his finger in the first test, right? So naturally, the replacement should be the SAA opener, right? Now, if you've picked the latest under-19, SA under-19 opener, if you picked Brzezinski straight out of the SA under-19 World Cup, and he was the guy going on tours, he was the guy playing for SAA and whatnot, then he doesn't come straight into the test side. You can't replace Aiden Markram with that guy that comes in because he's not ready for test cricket. So then what you end up having is the guy who hasn't been playing for SAA, who then has to come from, you have to take your Peter Malans from franchise cricket and semi-pro cricket and throw them into test cricket. But they weren't the SAA opener. Do you know what I mean? So for another example could be if Gerald Coetzee is the SAA opening bowler and Rabada gets injured, you don't replace him with Gerald Coetzee. You replace him with Aaron Hendricks or Dane Patterson. They are the ones that are ready to play test cricket, but they haven't been playing for SAA. You know what I mean? So that's what you kind of need to weigh up. The guys need to be ready to play test cricket. And the way you can kind of get ready to play test cricket without having played test cricket is to go on SAA tours, to play warm-up games and face James Anderson, face Stuart Broad, face these kind of guys, get used to the conditions.
I want to mention something there because currently it's a period in South African cricket that is quite difficult. So we're in a cycle, right? Like Michael Holding has said to me a few times. He said we're in a cycle. Every single team goes through a cycle. You can see it in football. A lot of teams go through cycles, especially club teams like United and Liverpool, etc. They go through cycles where they're going to have people that are falling out. South Africa at the moment is in a cycle throughout, from top Proteas right to the bottom to semi-pro. A lot of the senior players that kept the teams together are retiring and falling along the way, so one by one, but slowly but surely. And this current season, we're going to be sitting with a whole lot of youngsters. At the time in world cricket, where other teams like India, Australia, England have found their solid 11s. In times where the other teams have their core teams ready, South Africa in the transitional phase. So it's kind of probably one of the most difficult periods for us to bring in young talent into a national side to face the best of the best in other countries. We are struggling to find the best of the best in South African cricket. It's not like we're going to put our team on the field that has been playing test cricket for the last 5 years, that are in their element, that are in their peak. We're throwing people into the teams that are still learning the game, still understanding what it is like to play at the highest level. Whereas before, you had a lot of experienced players in the side that could help these players blood themselves in. And that's a difficult thing that is happening at the moment in South African cricket. And also that's why it's so key to have people that have played the game before in coaching positions. And I think that making a move on that SAA coach is so important because that is kind of Pouch's bridge between the domestic game, semi-pro game, and the Protea side. It can give a lot of insight and work hand in hand with that SAA coach. Who that SAA coach is going to be, we're going to have to see.
I agree with the both of you. I think SAA is a spot for a mixture of both. Just experienced guys who've played domestic cricket but they haven't had the international experience, and for younger guys who are looking like at the start of their careers that they could handle international cricket from an early on, and so it's an easier way to take a guy who's 19, 20 on tour and see. But I think for me, in terms of where Graham needs to look at, I liked the squad he picked, the SAA squad he picked for England. I thought it was great. I just felt that, like Dan says, from a fast bowling perspective, a guy like Linton Steedman is a year or two away from actually playing in the Proteas. So it's great for him to bowl against the English top order. But when an injury happened, he wasn't the first guy there. I'd have rather have had taken guys out of franchise cricket and put them in this game. But also, by the time that game happened, it went down in competitiveness because England decided to fall to some sort of a bug. And to a certain extent, yes, my issue comes in with where the team is going. Yes, we have a team that isn't performing well, and all our senior players have left. Do you and this is what I think, go the West Indies route and try and get in as many youngsters in and say, you've got the next 3 years to grow. You're going to take L's, but by the time you come out of this 3-year period, we're going to have a very competitive side and you guys will go through. That requires you giving guys a lot of rope in order for them to be able to bat and go through bad performances. The other way is to plug in a lot of older guys who are not going to be there for too long, and just they're 30 years old, they've played domestic cricket for 9-10 years, they're only going to get 20-30 test caps, but they hold your team together up until you get the younger guys in and they've gotten that experience. I'd rather go with the West Indies route. I thought the West Indies have done incredibly well when they got Jason Holder to captain that side about 4 or 5 years ago, and they blooded all the youngsters in, and now they're standing at the precipice of playing an England side that probably is one of the best in the world, and they are telling everyone that, hey, we're no longer 7 or 8 in the world, we probably could be 5 or 6. And for me, that learning experience can happen when you have a guy like Mark Boucher in the side and who's played the game before. You can take youngsters, blood them in with Mark being the mentor, being the hard man he is, and getting guys ready to play this game. And after the 3 years, once Mark lets go and Enoch Ngwe comes in, you got guys who've played international cricket. They're comfortable in who they are. They understand their roles, and they can go and dominate for the next World Test Championship or whatever trophies there are in the world. I think that's where Graham needs to try and look, not necessarily try and get older guys to plug in gaps like Peter Malan, but give younger guys an opportunity and say, we're going to give you 2-3 series. You can clearly see early on if someone's not cutting it for international cricket, and you can find another guy in the 45.
So Tim says over here that our domestic cricket is weak. Until that is fixed, we will continue to struggle. So I'm going to give my opinion first before you go, Dan, and then Mpho, you can give your thoughts on this. How do we improve our domestic cricket? It's a question that we need to answer. It's easy to say that our domestic cricket is weak. It's easy to say that, but how do we fix that problem is the question. I think that over the years, the deterioration of the teams is a natural. I feel that the quality is a natural spiral that you're going to have to face. I think we're producing a lot of high quality under 19 players. And a lot of players that are good quality in the lower division, and younger players. And I think that there was 3 years ago where we had under 19 side that went to the World Cup that looked very, very good. And they were unfortunate to lose in the quarterfinals and not make the semis. But the Reinhard van Tonder's team I'm talking about, the likes of Matthew Breedsky and all of those guys in the team, very good players that are playing semi-pro cricket. So a lot of players are coming through the system that are going to be blood in because of what's happening in the top tier. So it's a filter system. A lot of players that are going to be put into franchise cricket, into competitive situations because they're playing against like for like. And I think that we are going to have a point in our country and in cricket where it is low. People think that county cricket is very strong. County cricket is not as strong as people think it is. They say it is, but it's 18 teams. 1 or 2 or 3 of them are really good teams. The other teams are crap. You're talking about India Ranji Trophy. There's a lot of players that are a lot of teams that are crap there too. I mean, Australia's league is not that great either. That's not what it's all about. At the end of the day, so how strong your domestic cricket is, I wouldn't say that's the reason, the holistic reason on why your national team is performing well or not performing well. I don't know. That's just my opinion. Disclaimer, guys.
Look,
that's my opinion.
I agree with Tim here. I think South Africa's domestic cricket doesn't prepare our players for Test cricket. I don't think our local cricket prepares our players for Test cricket the same way county cricket prepares their players for Test cricket. I think if Morne Morkel was playing franchise cricket, I think if Stiaan van Zyl was playing franchise cricket, I think if Dwan Olivier, David Visa, all these guys that have left, I think if you suddenly throw 20 quality players back into our franchise system, then yes. If our batsmen are facing Morne Morkel and Vernon Philander before they go play Test cricket, I think they're prepared for Test cricket. if our bowlers are bowling to Stian van Zyl and just deploy, and I'm missing a few names, but these are guys. Morne Morkel has played Test cricket. He has 300 Test wickets. If he was at the Titans playing with Corbin Bosch, do you think Corbin Bosch would have benefited from playing with Morne Morkel at the Titans for the last 2 years? Do you think a guy like Hamza and John O'Bird would benefit from having a Stian van Zyl at the Cobras? Someone who's played Test cricket. Do you think batsmen would benefit from facing Philander, Morkel, Abbott, and Dwan Olafia? He has 4 Test bowlers. He has 4 bowlers who have been successful at Test cricket, who aren't bowling to our batsmen. They're bowling to English batsmen. They're bowling to Dom Sibley, Zach Crawley, Joe Denley. All these young Englishmen are facing our bowlers, and then our batsmen aren't prepared for Test cricket, and then England thrash us at a Test level because our batsmen aren't prepared. That's just my.
But then, what about Australia?
Opinion.
What about India? What about Australia? So it's easy to say that about county cricket. It's easy to say that county cricket is preparing their players for Test cricket. Not all the 18 teams will face them. Only a couple of teams in whatever division they're playing in will face them.
But I mean, all first division batsmen are exposed to Test level bowlers in county cricket. Ours aren't. So I agree. Not all the English sides are strong. 100%. There's a lot of teams there. Some of them are complete dog shit, but they're still facing quality players. They're still, like, if you go look at the batsmen who are playing county cricket and go look at the bowlers who are playing county cricket, just go look at those names and then compare them to ours. It doesn't, it's not rocket science. It doesn't take a genius to figure it out.
I think there's two points here around how weak or strong your domestic system is. The first is the money, right? All the guys Dan named, all the bowlers Dan named, who are cold packs now, left because there's no money in franchise cricket, South African franchise cricket. And as an international bowler, Proteas international bowler, who's used to earning Proteas salary, coming back and playing for the Cobras and taking that it doesn't work. So there's a money issue, right? And that money issue, I don't know how CSA is going to fix, because there's not a lot of eyes on our domestic game, unlike there is in the county game, where guys can be paid Proteas-like salaries to play, because you've got guys like Sky Sports and BBC wanting content. So I think that's a tough one that CSA has to get through. And in that situation, you don't attract the older guys. But then in attracting the older guys, there comes an opportunity argument. Are you going to deny? Because having guys like Morne and having guys like Stian in the side takes away a spot for a younger batsman or a younger bowler. Yes, you can try wiggle it around with types of games, but I want my younger batsmen and younger bowlers playing in games that matter, not in games where you're trying to rest Morne Morkel because the season's over, or Stian van Zyl. So that's where the question comes. I do think that maybe our domestic game needs to open up to probably 8 franchises, because I think that might give you enough pool of players that incorporates the older retired bowlers who can come in, and batsmen who can come in, and you give everyone an opportunity, but you're not denying someone, and you're also attracting the older guys. The only issue is the money. You need money for all of this. We know where finances are, and nobody's looking at domestic cricket. Only the purists are looking at domestic cricket. It's not an attractive proposition. Well, it is, because it's 8 hours of content, of live content, but SuperSport's not paying, and it's not buying, and no one's buying it. So without a commercial backer behind it, there's no way you can grow the domestic game in order for you to be able to give everyone an opportunity. And the only way you can be more competitive is, I think, you need to add 2 more teams. And try open it up there.
You've hit the nail on the head, man. It's money, right? So let me ask you this: all of South Africa's best rugby players are also playing overseas, right? Because our clubs, our rugby sides can't pay what the foreigners can pay. Why are we still the best rugby side in the world, though? Because we can still pick those guys. We can still select them.
Yes.
That's the difference. So why not? We should send these oaks. be like, off you go. Go to England, face the best bowlers, bowl to the best batsmen, have the best conditions, the best coaches, all of that, but just be available for international selection. You know, we've seen now that the county sides have increased the number of overseas. The counties have increased the number of overseas pros to 2 now for next season.
Yes, but that's to cover the cold pack though, because you're going to lose a lot of cold pack players. But the problem
that makes them available for selection. Though.
But
for international.
When the county play, South Africa's on tour. So if I'm an overseas county, I'll pick an overseas pro who's retired, like a Mone Moko, rather than pick a guy like a Gerald Coetzee, who I know will be available for half the season. So that's the other. South Africa doesn't have an exclusionary selection policy like under Alistair Coetzee back when the Springboks were playing. We don't have that. We can pick anyone from anywhere in the world. Quite frankly, they could have picked Devon Conway if they wanted to out of New Zealand, but we know where he's going to play. But it's just a situation of the employment laws in the UK and what the county crickets. Because if the county sides could pick more South Africans, Australians, Indians, there'll be the English game dies. It dies.
Absolutely.
You take whatever mystery spinner that comes out of Sri Lanka, give him millions, and so it's I think it's a tough thing for domestic cricket around the world. Australia is trying to figure it out. We're trying to figure it out. India, by the fact that the Ranji Trophy's got multiple teams, is just ridiculous. But they're using the IPL as their little breeding ground for guys, and I think maybe that's where you might have to go into opening up the Mzansi Super League to more teams and getting some more international players coming in who are quality and allowing for younger players to be able to play there, so you can give guys an opportunity to play. But the other way in which you can to bridge the gap between domestic and international is the SAA side. You need to send guys now in the season to go play in India, to go play in to go play around the world,
100%.
and that's how you then build those 30 guys who are not part of the 15, and you raise the level of the game, because it's about skills and seeing different things rather than playing the same type of guys every week in, week out. And I think the money for that hasn't been available to send. I haven't seen an SAA tour go and play outside of South Africa in a while, apart from that a spin camp that ended up being just for the Proteas. So that's what you need.
And India also have they term said it now. India have a flipping billion people, so there's a larger pool to pick from. But I don't think it's South Africa that is saying no, we don't want to pick a Kolpak player once they sell a Kolpak player. I think it's because that's in the contract from an England perspective that they can't play for their country once they've signed the contract.
I'm not talking Kolpak players. I'm talking about overseas pros.
Overseas pros are allowed to play for South Africa.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. But
there's not a lot that are better than what we have here.
No, but I'm saying, what if our next in line? What if Hamza, Keegan Peterson, Eddie Moore, Vian Mulder, Gerald Coetzee, Lifa and Tanzi? What if these guys were playing county cricket all the time?
Yeah. Okay. So
instead of 4-day cricket, which one do you think would prepare them for Test cricket when that time finally came?
But also remember that our seasons, some are there when it's winter year. It's different.
Yeah,
so
I know. Exactly. So there's a logistical issue.
There are some players that go over, like Aiden Markham plays there. There are players that have gone over. Keshav went over. It depends on who England wants as well. They're not going to just want to take everything, Dick Tom and Harry from South Africa, that's a young lady that they've never seen before, and tell him come play for county as a charity to make your cricket better. So it's a tricky situation. We need to find our way here in South Africa how we can broaden the pool. And I think if we have more teams competing against more quality players, if Reina van Tonder was playing against Ntanzi for 3 years now in domestic cricket, Ntanzi is going to become a flipping brilliant bowler, because he's going to think about ways on how to get the best batsmen in South Africa out. And that opportunities are not happening enough. There's not enough games that are happening between those tiers, because I don't think there's enough teams in domestic cricket. I think the pool of the amount of teams that we have in franchise cricket needs to increase. That's where I think we are lacking.
Yeah, I think our go ahead.
So I think for me, I agree with you guys, and to a certain extent, I do think some sort of a program that takes emerging players around the world to play. And for me, if I take an Ntanzi and put him in a Yorkshire second team, right, and he gets to play and bat against the Yorkshire first team batsman for some part of the season, that helps. That's a start. Getting our younger guys in programs that don't have to play county cricket as overseas pros, but they can be in the system, learn from different people, and that's how we grow as humans, being in different environments. I think that's a start. The franchises, increasing the franchises, I think is a no-brainer, but there's no money for that, so that has to sit because we'll lose a lot of quality cricketers who keep on getting stuck in semi-pro and are shooting the lights out there, but they're not coming in. And also you want the older guys to stay. And then I think finally, you also kind of feel as though the ICC needs to have a middle tier between domestic and the international scene for the domestic guys in the middle to try and help them get so like an emerging tour for the different guys, or in a tournament at the end of every season or June every year. At the end of all the cricket seasons, the best 15 cricketers in that domestic team in that country get to go and play in a tournament. That helps guys grow, and gives guys the South African opportunity to play for something, rather than CSA awards last night and only one person gets to win. So in soccer, CAF has that. It's called the Chan. They have domestic. It's a domestic tournament for domestic players. It's not that great, but it gives guys an opportunity.
Yeah, the money to send these people on so many tours. Like, I would love to see SA Emerging tours happen, couple of series, like I have a series, SA Emerging series, SAA series, where those guys are traveling, like they play India, they go on a tour like the test team does. But, the money to do that, I think we are really struggling to pay our semi-pro cricketers.
But why? That's true though. Why do we have 13 semi-pro sides? I'm sorry, as harsh as it sounds, there are a lot of teams and players there that are not contributing to South African cricket. We have club sides. We have club sides that would hand out a proper dicking to some of our semi-pro sides. I'm just going to say that. Like, I've watched club cricket that is better than some of our semi-pro sides. Like the India tour, we sent an SAA side to India, and they played against some quality Indian players like Mulder, and these guys got experience in India. That is more valuable than 10 seasons in South Africa. He faced Jadeja in India. Like, that's something that you can't replicate in South Africa. That's not the same as facing Bjorn Fontaine at the Wanderers. I'm sorry, it's just not gonna prepare you. So I think we need to restructure that semi-pro setup. 13 semi-pro sides is ridiculous. Squash that. Squash it to halve it. Halve that to 6. If you want to add 2 of them to the franchise system, I don't agree with that. But I mean, by all means, have 8 franchise sides. But at the end of the day, that doesn't prepare those players for Test cricket anymore. Having the same franchise system but adding 2 teams, how does that make the Hamza or Keegan Peterson more prepared for Test cricket when he gets there? What changes in terms of what changes in terms of preparing the next in line guys for Test cricket by adding 2 teams? Genuine question.
So essentially, because you mentioned that you'd want the older guys, the guys who were international players who have retired, to play in the system. The problem I have is if we bring a Vern into the Cobra side, who misses out? Which child misses out? But if you have an extra, you have 8 sides, then people can spread around, and you can have a pro essentially as a locked-in position in your team wherever it is. And that's the only reason why I'd want 8, is so I can give the older guys a longer run in domestic cricket and get a little younger guys an opportunity. That's the only reason why I want 8. I get if it's just an 8 for what it is right now, it's not going to work.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, if 20 Colpack players come back, then there's definitely room. But I'm kind of have this unpopular opinion that every franchise side kind of has like 2 or 3 semi-pro cricketers that are kind of punching above their weight. That's kind of just my opinion. And the guys who came back would replace them. But I mean, if you want to keep those there, like maybe if Steon van Zyl comes in, then John O'Bird misses out, which you don't want to see happening. I agree. You don't want to see that happening. You don't want Duan Olivier to come back and Gerald Kitsia misses out. So I agree. Then you could sort of start to justify a 7th and 8th side. But we're not going to get 20 Colpack players coming back. It's not going to happen. But there's no ways that it happens.
Which is why I think the idea of some sort of emerging tours and emerging tournaments for emerging players has to come from the ICC, because they can sell this tournament to. I'd watch it. I think a Super Sport would gladly have it. I would have it. You can sell the rights to that, and you can fund it. You can fund domestic cricket that way.
Look what they do with Red Bull cricket, campus cricket. Look what they do with that. The guys where things like where Heinrich Klaassen played in that tournament, Lungi Ngidi played in that tournament, where the top the champion team basically forms South African team, and they go play against other colleges, top colleges in the world, Sri Lanka and all other players. So like the university guys are getting that type of experience. I mean, why can't our players too? I think if we condense it in the provincial, make it an honor to play for your province again, and make it like it must be like I got selected for the province side, not I got selected for the province side. Like and club cricket, if they my thing is if we can strengthen club cricket again. So if we lower the teams on the top, so I think we increase the teams in the top so we can see more of the under 19 players that come through the system play against the top guys much earlier, maybe get that experience a lot earlier. And then when you play, I think when you move down and you have less provinces, it becomes like an honor to play for your province again, and more of those provincial players get shifted back into club cricket. But they need to make club cricket, I think, a little bit stronger by giving more incentive, more sponsors, money involved in the tournaments, more. If that comes in, you will improve the standard of cricket, I think, in South Africa, because then club cricket will be playing at a high level and people will want to go watch club cricket. What makes South African rugby so strong? South African rugby, club rugby is strong. I've went to games where I've seen some tough games being played. The top kids in the country are playing club rugby, and obviously then provincial, and then etc. And there's incentive. Players like teams like Hamilton's and False Bay give a salary to their players. There's incentive for them to play out of school. You're not losing a lot of players to other professions. They want to play the sport for money. I mean, money changes flipping everything, I guess.
No, and you make a point. It's a very good point. What South Africa's semi-pro system has done is it's taken over from the club system, and if you look at how club rugby works, people are watching it on TV, and if you got all the provincial clubs playing one province's spot in a national final, that will be televised on SuperSport, where scouts will be watching. Everyone will be.
There's more people at a club game between Hamilton's and False Bay than there is at the franchise game between the Cobras and Titans. That's the sickening. That's how sick it is. That's how crazy it is.
No, but that's what we need to go back to. It's you need to capture that old traditional. When all the older guys talk about Transvaal and the Western Province, that's what you want. You need to capture that and sell that, because that's a sellable product, rather than just a semi-pro game that happens and nobody's watching, nobody actually cares, and we already know who's coming out, rather than not knowing, having a club tournament, because we have it up until everyone gets to high school, to varsity. Once varsity starts, you've got Varsity Cup, which we watch. It's cricket, but it's like 3 weeks. And then after that, there's nothing. It's just semi-pro and franchise. But semi-pro is not on TV. Franchise isn't on TV either. And so you're stuck with guys who have the love of the game playing, rather than that incentive of, I could be that guy, that Jamie Vardy who was a factory worker in 2004 and I'm scoring 100 Premier League goals. That's the essence that rugby captures. And I think we need to capture too.
So, guys, I think we're going to have to wrap it up now. We've gone into, I think this is one of our longest ever podcasts. I love these conversations. I think we need to have another one. Let's maybe have an episode down the line where we talk about possibly how we can actually plan. Maybe we should do some games with regards to that, like go away and try to put ourselves in the minds of the senior guys at CSA and think about how they can raise funds to get these type of tournaments to happen between emerging tours and all the SA tours. But thanks a lot, Mpho, for coming on the show. I really enjoyed having a conversation with you again. We will definitely see you in the future. There's no doubt about that. And if there's anything you want to punt or anything that's coming up this week for you.
Yeah, so still follow me. My Twitter handle's there, Adam Pomareki. And also 1WSR.com will be showing the test series we're covering the test series radio station. We're covering the test series between West Indies and England. That starts on the 8th. So that's going to be happening. And then up until 3TC cricket happens, we'll be covering that. CSA gave us the approval during this week for us to cover that on radio. So we'll be there on the 18th, not at the stadium, but a remote location because of what's happening. And we'll be doing that. And yeah, just follow myself, Gorilla SA, and at One World SR for any updates that you would like to see regarding cricket.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Mpho, for coming on the show, and we'll speak to you again soon. Thanks, bro.
Sure. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, mate.
Yeah, so Dan, that was our show today. Any final thoughts from your side? I think we had quite a lot of great talks and great opportunities there to discuss, and we had some.
Yeah, no, it was a good chat. I don't think there's much more I can add there. I think we all will kind of had our opinions. Evan says we should get him on. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, maybe we can get you on some day. I think we're gonna open it up to the fans.
He needs a profile picture though. My mom told me never to talk to strange men on the internet without profile pictures. Sorry, Bevan.
So guys, maybe we're gonna start. There's something that we were thinking about. We wanted to get this podcast off the ground. It was obviously episode 10. It's a nice milestone. Guys, DM us, tag us in posts, tell us why you want to be on the show, and maybe we'll pick a few guys that want to come on the show and have a good discussion with me and Dan in the future. So tag us in, follow us on all our social media platforms. It's all across the bottom of the screen over here. Subscribe to this channel, like this video, share this video with everybody. Let's get more fans involved with us. We're trying to start a movement here. We're trying to build a family of cricket fans. Don't forget to download our magazine. We have now a monthly magazine, digital magazine. We're very proud as a team of what we've achieved with regards to that and putting this together. I think it's the first proper digital magazine that is easily accessible on every device in the country at the moment. So I think, guys, anybody that's out there, try to download it and get involved. We would like to hear your opinions. There's a section in the magazine called Fanatics Viewpoints where you guys get to send us articles about your opinions on the game, and we publish the best ones of that month. So send in your articles to cricketfanaticsmag@gmail.com, and you'll see them published in the magazine. So follow us on all our platforms. You know what to do. Press the notification bell, and we'll see you again next week. Thank you guys for all the support that you've given us over the last of the last year. We really appreciate it. See you guys next week with another episode of the podcast.